He was the most popular actor in America. Everyone believed that he had everything. However, Tom Hanks was concealing something sinister behind that well-known smile. His body abruptly collapsed at age 35. In just 3 months, he put on 30 pounds. He was only able to get 2 hours of sleep per night. Hollywood ceased contacting him after his film failed so badly. For 30 years, he kept his complete breakdown a secret. Even his greatest followers will be shocked by what he discloses now that he is finally speaking out. Tom Hanks didn't have a stable upbringing. He traveled around a lot when his parents split when he was 5 years old. At one point he claimed that it seemed like he moved every 6 months. He resided across California and briefly in Nevada. 3 guys were the spouses of his mother, and his father also got married again. Tom didn't consider it tragic, even if it was a tumultuous existence. Speaking positively about his early years, he claimed that the Bay Area, where he spent a lot of time, was the most picturesque location on the planet. He had something unique because of all those adjustments and movements. He became adaptive. As an actor, such adaptability would prove to be one of his best qualities. It wasn't always clear to him that he wanted to be one. He actually had no clear strategy when he started college. He then saw a performance called The Iceman Cometh one evening. It wasn't flamboyant or action-packed. Even though it was lengthy and severe, he was really affected by it. Tom sensed a connection as he observed the performers on stage, particularly Joe Spano in the lead role. He made up his mind that evening. He intended to become an actress. He hurled himself into the theater after that. After transferring, he started studying the trade at California State University, Sacramento. He carried with him the memories of his initial studies at Chabot College. He said years later that the knowledge he gained there, particularly in the area of manufacturing, influenced every aspect of his work. Things underwent yet another significant change in 1977. He got to know Vincent Dowling, who oversaw Cleveland's Great Lakes Theater Festival. Tom accepted Dowling's offer of an internship. 3 years of full-time theatrical employment followed that summer job. He performed in Ohio Shakespeare productions over the summers. He worked backstage at a Sacramento community theater throughout the winter. He constructed sets, moved props, operated lights, and studied lines, among other things. Tom relished every moment of what amounted to acting boot camp. To continue, he even left college early. Although it was a bold step, it demonstrated his seriousness about getting into the theater. It wasn't a heroic role or a likable character that gave him his first big break. It was a result of being a villain. Tom portrayed the endearing yet treacherous character of Proteus in The Two Gentlemen of Verona. He did a fantastic job in a challenging task. He even earned a local Best Actor award for his performance, which was praised by critics. For the first time, many outside of his social circle began to pay attention. In hindsight, it's one of the rare instances in which he portrayed the antagonist, but it demonstrated his versatility even at a young age. He had a brief role in the 1980 horror flick He Knows You're Alone shortly after landing his first movie role. He portrayed a college student who discusses the reasons why people like being afraid. He made an impression even though he wasn't in the film too much. He earned his SAG membership by surviving the movie, which was uncommon for horror characters in those days. The first official step into Hollywood was that small role, then came television. Tom featured in the oddball sitcom Bosom Buddies in 1980, in which he and another man pretended to be women in order to reside in an apartment complex only for women. It was a strange, humorous, and surprisingly intelligent show. Although it barely ran for 2 seasons, it provided Tom with a lot of exposure and his first consistent acting job. It kept him in the game, but it wasn't glamorous. With Splash, everything was different. Although he didn't consider Tom a leading man, Ron Howard found him humorous when he appeared as a guest star on Happy Days. Nevertheless, Howard allowed Tom to try out when other actors declined the part. He was spot on. When Splash was released in 1984, it was an unexpected smash. A man fell in love with a mermaid in this romantic comedy. Tom was the main character, and his charisma, sense of humor, and candor glowed on film. The audience adored him. All of a sudden, he was more than just the hilarious comedy character. he was a well-known actor. Following his breakthrough performance in Splash, Tom Hanks appeared to be on his way to becoming a household name. However, immediately following that blow, everything began to unravel. One film after another fell short. Dragnet, The Money Pit, Volunteers and Bachelor Parties all failed to impress critics. The Man with One Red Shoe may have been the worst of the group. Critics weren't holding back when it blew out at the box office. Some claimed it was completely unfunny. Hanks managed to stay afloat despite all of these failures. He was frequently praised by critics for being the greatest part of these subpar movies, which helped his reputation weather the storm. Nevertheless, it was a difficult period for him. For me, things weren't much simpler. He subsequently said that he felt like a complete failure while going through a difficult divorce. His job seemed to be slipping away, and he was attempting to keep himself together by going to therapy 3 times a week. As the years passed, little got better. Strong at first, The Burbs soon died down. It didn't become the smash that some had anticipated, and critics had differing opinions. Another strange endeavor that didn't quite work was Joe versus the Volcano. It barely recovered its budget. The Bonfire of the Vanities followed. That film was a complete failure. It barely made a small portion of the almost $50 million it cost to create. The production was so bad that someone wrote a complete book on it, and the reviews were harsh. Once more, Hanks was not held directly responsible. However, the run of poor luck appeared to go on forever. Then, when everything seemed lost, something came into focus. Finally, Hooch and Turner emerged and gave him the victory. People adored the story of a slobbery dog and a police officer. It earned more than 5 times its budget and spent weeks in the top 10. Audiences were ecstatic, but critics weren't. That achievement provided Hanks with much-needed evidence that he could still attract large audiences. Although it wasn't a masterpiece, it demonstrated his durability. Hanks also took a significant chance with Punchline at that time. A deeper and more emotional part than anything he had ever portrayed previously was that of a tormented stand-up comedian. His forceful and unvarnished performance revealed a side of him that no one had before seen. But the film's financial performance was just mediocre. At the same time, Big was released and quickly became a tremendous success. What viewers desired was obvious. The kind man. For a period after Punchline, Hanks avoided playing more sinister parts. He had shown that he was capable of handling serious characters, but he discovered that his warmth, kindness, and relatability were what made people love him the most. When Tom Hanks played Forrest Gump, he was already feeling quite well. He had won an Oscar for Philadelphia just the year prior, but all would change with Forrest Gump. Hanks committed himself into the part, adopting Forrest's soft demeanor, his southern dialect, and even his appearance. To get in shape for the role, he ran non-stop, dropped weight, and hardly interacted with anyone on set. Hanks was out jogging during lunch as others relaxed. He was so dedicated that they enlisted his brother Jim Hanks to assist with filming the lengthy sequences. Jim filled in for several of those photos since he resembled Tom enough and could sprint in the same manner. It really turned into a family endeavor. The fact that Tom didn't even accept a standard pay for the film is absurd. Rather, he struck a dangerous bargain. He would get a cut of the money made at the box office. That risk paid out handsomely. Hanks earned more than $60 million on the movie, which brought in over $678 million worldwide. He also won his 2nd consecutive Oscar for the part. Forrest Gump was more than simply a film by this point. It was a phenomena of culture. Then, however, an odd event occurred. According to the Washington Times and a tabloid program called A Current Affair, Tom may have imitated his brother. They claimed that Forrest's demeanor, manners, and voice all bore an uncanny resemblance to a character Jim Hanks had portrayed in the low-budget comedy Buford's Beach Bunnies. Only a few months before Forrest Gump started filming, that movie was released. Jeter Buford was the name of Jim's character, a timid man who was afraid of ladies. People remarked on the soft tone, the hairdo, and even the uncomfortable stance. Furthermore, the rumors only got bigger when Jim also performed running sequences for Tom and Gump. The mystery remains since neither brother has provided confirmation. Whether intentional or not, The entire incident gave the backstory of one of Hollywood's most cherished roles a strange new dimension. Throughout it all, Forrest and Jenny's bond subtly shone out. As Jenny, Robin Wright collaborated with Hanks to craft one of the most poignant romantic tales in movie history. Their sequences were ageless, poignant, and seemed authentic. They hardly knew one another behind the camera though. Later Wright disclosed that Hanks ran throughout every break, because they were never able to spend time together on set. It's incredible to consider that practically all of their chemistry was developed while the film was being shot. Nevertheless, Forrest and Jenny's bond moved viewers in a way that few romantic couples in films ever do. It took Tom Hanks some time to become a Hollywood icon. It required perseverance, depth of feeling, and a readiness to go where few performers would. He displayed a different side in Saving Private Ryan when he played Captain John Miller. He wasn't acting fearlessly as a hero. He was portraying a leader who experienced everything yet persisted. Director Steven Spielberg made sure we noticed his hands shaking silently. Nerves weren't the only factor. The burden of years spent at war was the cause. His guys also see it in one scene. His hands shake uncontrollably as he takes out a map. Hanks wasn't only playing a role, something broken, something raw was being revealed by him. The silences, not the words, were the source of the terror. "Earn this," Captain Miller mutters as he is shot and killed by the exact soldier he chose to save. Private Ryan was not the only one. It was for us all. A last reminder of the cost borne by those who were never able to return home. Then a toy cowboy appeared, not the sort with guns. Pixar wanted Hanks to voice a sheriff named Woody, which was their invention. They utilized a clip from Turner and Hooch, in which he rants at a dog, in place of auditions. The character abruptly sprang to life once they matched Woody's animation. Hanks gave Woody something unique, yes, humor, but also heart. Woody wasn't only a plaything, he was a leader who was always devoted, even if he was occasionally hesitant and envious. Hanks had layers in his voice. Children witnessed a humorous cowboy. Adults noticed something more profound. Woody became a representation of maturing, change and loss as Toy Story expanded into a series. Hanks continued to return, since both Woody and ourselves continued to change. However, Hanks didn't hesitate to physically leave comfort behind. He portrayed Chuck Nolan, who was stripped of everything and left adrift on an island in Castaway. Hanks altered every aspect of his personality to make it authentic. After filming the initial sequences, he halted work for a year. In that period, he lost more than 50 pounds, being emaciated from being healthy. It was more than simply a physical change. It was risky. He almost died from an infection in a leg injury. Hanks persisted though. Hanks and Wilson, a volleyball, were the only co-stars for the most of the movie. Nevertheless, we experienced every feeling: desperation, hope, and loneliness. In some way, he made us care about the ball, which ended up being his sole companion. Words are not necessary for that type of performance. All that is required is honesty. Hanks played Paul Edgecombe in The Green Mile, another emotionally taxing part, just before being sent away. This time he was not the prisoner. The guard was him. He wasn't, however, aloof or frigid. He was considerate, compassionate, and troubled by the responsibility of his job. It was a supernatural tale. Hanks, however, kept it grounded. His character was unable to halt the deaths of innocent men, particularly John Coffey, a kind giant with healing abilities, who was unfairly condemned. Hanks doesn't say much when Coffey tells him that he's sick of the world, but his expression says it all. It's among the most tragic scenes in the movie. Knowing that Stephen King had seen Hanks in that part when he was writing the book adds to its impact. In some ways, the performance fulfilled the vision. When Tom Hanks and Samantha Lewis first met in college, their romance quickly became serious. Colin, their first child, was born in 1977. Although they were not yet married, they were wedded a year later. Hanks was just 23. In retrospect, he acknowledged that he wasn't prepared. He had been raised by parents, step-parents, and half-siblings in a dysfunctional household. The only thing he truly desired was stability. Marriage didn't provide him what he expected it to. Later on he said that he was too young and unconfident to handle such a responsibility. After over 10 years together, the marriage terminated in divorce in 1987. Tragic events occurred years later in 2002 when Samantha passed away from bone cancer. Despite the length of time they had been separated, Hanks was deeply affected by her passing. Before the first chapter was completely concluded, a new one had already started. Rita Wilson and Tom first crossed paths on The Buzzing Buddies set in 1981. There was an immediate spark when she appeared as a guest star on the show. For a time, they were just pals. The link, however, stuck for some reason. Hanks subsequently stated that he believed he had come to the proper location when they first stared at one another. Everything happened fast after his divorce. In 1988, he and Rita were married. They managed to make it work year after year, unlike many couples in Hollywood. They commemorated 36 years of marriage in 2024. Hanks shared a picture along with a little description, "Nothing except love for the past 36 years." He attributed their marriage's strength to maturity and time. He had matured and was aware of his desires. He once advocated against marriage before the age of 30. The hard way was how he had learnt it. Tom had relatives in each of his marriages. His firstborn child, Colin, became an actor, just like his father. In 1982, a few years later, his daughter Elizabeth arrived. Tom had 2 additional boys after getting married to Rita, Truman in 1995 and Chet in 1990. His youngest and oldest children were therefore separated for over 20 years. Hanks has frequently discussed the differences between parenting kids when he was young and poor, and when he was older and prosperous. His children took separate paths. Truman chose a more subdued path, working behind the scenes in movies, while Colin had a strong acting career, and Chet pursued music and saw his share of public ups and downs. Tom broke down in tears as he gazed out at his family, while accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award at the 2020 Golden Globes. His voice broke as he remarked, "A man is blessed to have a family sitting down front like that." Then everything changed once more in 2015. However, Rita needed strength this time. At the age of 58, she received a breast cancer diagnosis. She sought a second opinion because she had a gut feeling that something was amiss, even if the initial examination had missed it. She was spared by that second test. She underwent reconstructive surgery and a double mastectomy. Tom stayed at her side the entire time. Rita subsequently claimed that she had joked with him following her diagnosis, saying, "I want you to throw a party and be really sad for a long time if something happens." That instant, which was equal parts love and fun, demonstrated how strong their relationship had become. Rita defeated the cancer. She also achieved a significant milestone by March 2025, 10 years cancer-free. I am really appreciative to her for marking the 10th anniversary of internet writing. She and Tom joined forces to raise awareness of cancer. "Always seek a second opinion," she said. Her message was straightforward yet impactful. Have faith in your intuition, and she had Tom at her side, strong and solid throughout the most trying time of her life. For many years, Tom Hanks has been one of Hollywood's most adored performers. However, he has been at the heart of a number of unanticipated issues in recent years, some of which were caused by his own acts and others of which were entirely beyond his control. In February 2025, it all began over at the 50th anniversary edition of Saturday Night Live. The Black Jeopardy comedy included Hanks' return to the role of Doug, a Trump supporter. He delivered the right response while sporting an American flag t-shirt and a MAGA hat, but he flinched when the host, played by Kenan Thompson, attempted to shake his hand. The audience chuckled, but things quickly soured. "Perhaps I'll start a show for you to come on," Doug said. "We will refer to it as White Jeopardy." That statement struck a chord. Social media was inundated with critics. Hanks and SNL were accused by some of promoting stale, contentious humor. Some, such as Meghan McCain, said he was making fun of average Americans. Although the video went viral very fast, the responses were not amusing at all. Soon after, investigations into Hanks' history began. One 2004 clip reappeared, and it didn't look well. Hanks had performed on stage with a man wearing blackface at a California school fundraiser, carrying a toy gorilla while wearing what seemed to be a faux tribal attire. As the audience watched, Hanks was seen joking and laughing in the scene captured on a blurry video. Outrage ensued when the video was released years later. Hanks didn't dispute a civil rights organization's call that the performance was racist. He said that it was meant to be a fun night for charity, and that he had been taken by surprise, but acknowledged that it was a horribly disrespectful incident, both then and now. In addition to apologizing, the man in the outfit described it as one of his worst life choices. Hanks was questioned about Hollywood's more serious issues while the attention remained on him, particularly in the wake of the Harvey Weinstein affair. Hanks did not sidestep the query. He acknowledged that he had participated in offensive, filthy comedy on stage. It's still bad, even if it's not criminal. He said that it would be naive for him to say he had seen nothing. I would be foolish to claim that it has never occurred at any of my jobs, he remarked. He also made it apparent that he wanted to improve. He urged others to take the #MeToo movement seriously, because he thought it had the potential to bring about long-lasting change. Then something much odd appeared: conspiracy theories. Far-right organizations linked Hanks to a lot of QAnon rumors around 2018. They unjustly claimed that he was a member of the sex trafficking organization run by Jeffrey Epstein. No evidence was found. Nevertheless, the misinformation quickly spread. One lady alleged in a tweet that Hanks had mistreated her and even sold her to him when she was a young girl. Videos accusing him of being a pedophile quickly flooded YouTube. The suspicions became more sinister once Hanks contracted COVID-19 in 2020. He was incarcerated according to some. Others said a fake chemical withdrawal was killing him. One fake even said that he had been put to death by the US military by 2021. It was all untrue. Actually, there were no connections between Hanks and Epstein discovered by several fact-checkers. No flight log ever contained his name. However, that didn't seem to matter in the era of false information. The falsehoods simply continued. The world believed that Tom Hanks was at the peak of his abilities at the age of 35. His charisma and laid-back on-screen persona had already made him a household celebrity. However, things were collapsing behind the scenes. He now refers to the event that occurred in 1991 as a metabolic breakdown. Suddenly, his body ceased functioning as it had. He became less energetic. Despite not making any changes to his diet or exercise routine, he began to gain 30 pounds in just 3 months. He was groggy, tired, and heavy. He felt as though he was trapped in molasses, despite his best efforts to push through. Worst of all, he was unable to fall asleep. Getting 2 or 3 hours a night was a blessing. His life was overtaken by tiredness, which affected his body and psyche. Not only that, but his career was also in ruins. The Bonfire of the Vanities, his film, had just failed. With a large budget and high expectations, it was meant to be a major success. Rather, it made a loud plop. Critics detested it. The audience did not attend. Almost none of the money spent on the film was recovered. Later on, Hanks said that he considered it to be among the worst films ever produced. Hollywood paid attention. All of a sudden, no one was calling. He wasn't getting big jobs from directors. From 1991 to 1992, he hardly appeared on film. The quiet was deafening. He began to consider the possibility that his run was finished. The uncertainties mounted, concerns his future, his skills, and his health. And he continued to smile in public despite everything. Nobody knew what he had gone through for the following 30 years. He portrayed the cheerful, likable celebrity. He was the pleasant, upbeat person who everyone wanted to work with. Beneath that facade, however, he was still burdened by that trying period. He never discussed the fall, his sleeplessness, or his concern that his career was in danger of failing. Rather, he dedicated his life to serving others. On his movie sets, he made sure everyone felt appreciated. He played deeper, more tragic roles that allowed him to express some of his suppressed emotions. His experience helped him become more deliberate and cautious about the work he chose to do and the individuals he collaborated with. This is where the movie came next. It was directed by Robert Zemeckis and provided Hanks with the unique opportunity to portray himself at various stages of his life, including that traumatic year when everything seemed to be falling apart. The filmmakers de-aged him in real time on screen, using state-of-the-art AI. Hanks was able to view his face during one of the lowest periods of his life, at the age of 35 for the first time. It seemed unreal, emotional, as well as therapeutic. In interviews, he claimed that examining his younger self helped him reconcile with the fearful, worn-out, and uncertain Tom Hanks of that era. Finally, after all these years, he is discussing it. And by doing this, he is demonstrating a new sort of strength, the power to speak the truth, not the strength to act as though nothing is wrong. He once stated that no one ought to marry before turning 30. It was more than simply counsel. He was talking from experience. He had hurried into things before fully understanding himself and made mistakes in his own relationships, which had cost him. He eventually realized that love was insufficient on its own. Individuals required time to develop, discover their identities, and choose their desires. That type of development didn't occur for him until much later. He discovered that enduring love wasn't about drama or passion by the time he eventually found someone who genuinely fit into his life. It required patience, time, and the ability to create and follow a strategy. As he grew older, his opinions continued to shift. He had held the opinion that only homosexual actors ought to portray gay characters. He also questioned if roles like Tom Hanks, who is straight, should have been played in films like Philadelphia, which he really liked. But after some time and further reflection, he developed a fresh perspective. He came to see that, regardless of one's identity, acting was about connecting with others, being truthful, and comprehending their experiences. It didn't really matter who performed the part. It concerned if the performance was sincere, considerate, and well executed. It changed his perspective on marriage as well. It was more than romanticism. It was a matter of two individuals truly discovering one another and then deciding to proceed together. It was about creating a life plan together and genuinely carrying it out, even in the face of adversity. For him, love shifted from being about falling to being about constructing. And all of that, every change in perspective, every lesson gained, came from experiencing life, failing, trying again, and learning to face the difficult parts head-on.